How's it going, my friend? It's Danny here from projectmanaverse.com, real world technical project management for beginners. And today I'm going to explain the benefits of a project. I'll explain why you should know what the benefits are as a project manager, why it's important, and then we'll dive into the benefits. So first of all, let's start at the basics. What is a project, first of all? What does that actually mean when we say we're doing a project? Well, I've actually pulled out a definition from the Association of Project Managers, APM, and I'm going to read that to you because it's a nice definition. It's probably the best one I've found. They describe it as a project is a unique transient endeavor undertaken to achieve planned objectives, which could be defined in terms of outputs, outcomes, or benefits. And I like the word transient in there. It is a transient endeavor because you are trying to get from one place to another place. The project bit is not going to be the permanent state. It's not how it is today. It's not how it's going to be in the future, but it is a transient endeavor. And one thing that isn't on here, which I often see on a lot of definitions, which I like, is a project has a start and a finish by definition. So there are cut-offs. It's a distinct start and there's distinct beginning. But anyway, that's what a project is. And you can have a project for pretty much anything. It doesn't have to be in the workplace. You could have a project for a wedding planner, planning a wedding. You could have a project for a DIY project. You could have a project for your career progression. You could have a project for pretty much anything, and you can apply the principles and techniques we use in project management to stuff in your personal life, especially around DIY projects. It's a quite useful thing to do. So why should you care about what the benefits of doing a project are as a project manager? It seems like a no-brainer for us project managers. Well, the answer is, as we are working in the modern world, big companies, they want to deliver change faster and quicker, and project management is great, but it's not always the fastest, or it doesn't feel like it's the fastest way of doing change. In the long run, I could argue that all day, but that's the kind of driver for these companies wanting to deliver change faster and faster, and use not abandon project manager, but start using more modern techniques like agile and other ways of being a bit more quick and fast with delivery of change. As a result of that, some companies are starting to phase out parts of project management or all of project management in the traditional sense. And you might be in a situation at work where you have options, or the department or your department head is considering a change, and they're considering, should you do it for a project or should you do it through other means that are more agile? And that's where you should have your arguments ready for the benefits of a project, because there are plenty. And as a project manager, you want to step in and say, well, we should do this as a project because of X, Y, and Z, if you really feel that's the right way to do it. Also, as a community, us project managers need to stick together. And as I say, the project management is, I wouldn't say it's being phased out, but in many companies, even really big ones, they are reducing the rigor or the discipline of strict traditional project management and adopting new methods and trying to do hybrids, or sometimes they are eliminating it. I know of a huge company in the UK, a very big one, I won't go into the details, that has actually, it's been around for a long time, and it has got rid of the project manager role within its company and replaced it with something more funky and new and modern and agile and all that jazz. So just be wary that you need to be able to argue that projects have their benefits. There's a good reason to use a project, and let's discuss what they are. So benefit number one is, with a project, you know what the cost of the project is going to be. You might not know exactly what it's going to be, but you'll have a good idea because you do a lot of work in the cost estimation to get the funding for the project. If you just do change on the fly and you just start working on it and you spend a bit of money, then you spend a bit more, before you know it, you can find yourself in a black hole of debt, change is expensive, especially in the technical IT world. But with a project, at least from the start, you know what the project costs are going to be. Sure, you might go over the costs a little bit, but in general, you're going to have an idea of what the costs are going to be. So you can budget for that, and you can put it in the context of the wider business cost to make sure there is enough money to actually do the change. So that is benefit number one. Benefit number two is you'll have a good idea of when the thing is going to be delivered, because projects take a long time. They always take longer than anticipated, unless you're a really good project manager like me, in which case they always deliver on time. But generally, projects can be delayed and you can go over time, which adds to more cost. But with a project, at least you have a good sense of when it's actually going to deliver. If you don't have a project plan, then you really have no sense of when it's going to deliver, because if with all the planning that goes into a project, we're still not getting the timelines right, if you don't do any of that work, any of that rigor, any of that upfront planning and analysis, then you're definitely going to get it completely wrong. If you're just saying, well, it's going to be around 6 months to a year, it's going to be over that, and you're going to go completely over your committed timelines to your sponsors if you're just doing change on the fly and just doing it bit by bit and asking them for more money and more money. So with a project, you know roughly how long the thing is going to take, and you can plan for that if there's other projects coming up that are different priorities or higher priorities and all that kind of stuff. Number three, you know what resources you're going to need with a project. So rather than waiting till you come up into a jam or you realize you want to build some kind of functionality with a project, you know what you're doing up front, so you can really think about what resources you're going to need to be able to actually deliver the project. So that is a good benefit as well, because some resources are not easy to obtain. Even if they're working in your own company, you can't just grab them when you want and pull them onto your project. They have to be booked in advance. There's lots of projects going on in these big companies, so these resources need to be shared across projects. So with a project, you know exactly what the scope is, you know what the solution is, you know what the work breakdown structure is, and you know what resources are going to be required to be able to deliver every aspect of your project. So you can get those resources aligned at the start. If you need them later down the line, you can book them way in advance. What else do we have on here? Control. Now, control is probably one of the biggest benefits to having a project. Projects are very controlled. They have a lot of governance within them. So you have procedure to follow, you have rules to follow, you have policy to follow, you have various checkpoints, and the control is there for the project's protection, to make sure you don't go too far down the line and spend too much money. It's there to make sure you don't impact the business or impact someone else by doing your project. It's really a really controlled way of doing change, which is what we want. When you do change without control, it gets very chaotic, problems happen, you end up spending more money than you need to, and you can go over budget and you can go over timelines as well. But projects are very well controlled. If it's a real project, you've got good governance behind it. That is a safety net for you and your project as well, and for the business, and for ultimately your customers as well, the people that will be using the thing that you are developing or creating or changing. So projects have good governance, they have good control, which you don't always have with doing change on the fly. What else do we have on the list? A few more. So there's less risk with projects, because with a project, at the start of the project, you agree what you're going to do, you create a plan for it. Once you have that plan, you can look at it carefully with your team, and you can start to anticipate the risks involved, and you can do work to mitigate them or try and eliminate them altogether, or at least manage the impact if they do occur, and you can do all that work up front as you're going through the project. Without a project, if you're doing things on the fly, you don't have the full picture, so you can't anticipate all those risks, and because you can't anticipate them when they come up, they're a bit of a shock and you're not ready to handle them, and it's too late to try and to mitigate them, and often there's no risk, it just becomes an issue straight away. You go straight into the issue phase. So with a project, at least you can anticipate those risks and try and stop them ever becoming issues. Now, the last benefit is you have with a project, I believe you have more chance of actually getting the thing done. A lot of projects actually fail, but at least with the project, you have a good chance of getting it done. If for no other reason, then you know what the success criteria is. You're very clear on what the outcome of the project is, you know when it's been achieved, and you have agreed what the critical success factors are, and you can close down the project in a formal way. Without that governance and that control and having a project, a change could just keep going on, and the resources are constantly getting involved and being pulled back into it because you have no clear line in the sand and you have no real way of knowing if it's all finished. So that's probably an extreme example, but it really does help in terms of drawing a line in the sand of definitively closing down a piece of change once it has been delivered, and really knowing when it's no longer change and it's now in BAU, business as usual, and handed over to the operations. Okay, that's pretty much the video. So those are the benefits of a project. So remember, if you are in a situation where people are umming and ahhing whether you should do something just agile or on the fly or use a project, you need to step in there, and if you feel it's right, you know what the arguments are now to be able to say we should do a project. Let's do it the right way. Let's have some control and governance around it, and let's save money and do it properly. Okay, that's the video. So if you liked it, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more videos like this one, hit that subscribe button. I'm doing daily technical project management videos, so if you're new to project management, you will get a lot of benefit from tuning in and watching the 10-minute videos every day. Okay, until tomorrow, please take care.